Today I'm going to be trying out the OneTigris Tegimen Hammock Tent without the hammock today. And I would be doing just a real quick review of it and doing a little bit of camping out here at this place. So I hope you join me. Ooh, gotta love the old Broncos. Just pull out some stuff here. So the OneTigris, this Tegimen, it doesn't come with poles. It's usually you run a ridge line through it like a hammock, and that's what hangs it up. But don't have really good trees to do a hammock tent out here, so I bought these separate poles called, got them off Amazon, Hike Man. I'll use these to see if I could string it up. All right, let's get all the plastic off. Okay, well, so far, got a nice little bag. Okay. One of the reasons why I've been wanting to try this is that OneTigris has a great teepee tent called the Rock Fortress, and it's a real good one. I love it. And but one of the drawbacks of teepee tents is that stupid pole in the middle. I always got to walk around it. You get a stove in there, you got to walk around that too. So it's just no fun walking around everything. And so I kind of wanted to try a different tent, you know, kind of a more of a, you know, square shape, rectangle shape, without a pole in the middle that I have to constantly just keep going around. So this is the ridge here. And this is the other ridge here. Now I just need to figure out where do I want it. Oh, that's pretty neat. Look at that. You can adjust it and tighten it. And that'll hold its shape. Okay, let's get the other one ready. That's what I got so far. Unfortunately, this is a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be. And there it goes. I would recommend just, you know, before taking this tent out, you know, practicing it for the first time and, you know, putting it up and taking it down. Okay. I just need to get a stake. Okay, so this is what I got so far. It's probably not the best job because as you can see, it's a little bit odd shaped, and as you can see, that ridge comes down and hangs down low. I kind of wish probably tighten that up, maybe pull a post or something. We'll see. Let's walk around a little bit. So I got these stakes in, and there's stakes at the bottom. Let's take a look on the inside. Okay, going on the inside. A little bit of room here. But yeah, there's room in here. Let's go and get my bedding in here. Okay, got the tent set up. My bedding is on the inside. A few minutes of daylight left. Let's just enjoy it. Sit back and relax. Look at the pond. I'm out here just enjoying it. Tegimen, you know, so far I like it. It's not an instant, you know, instant pop-up type tent. So if you're wanting something like that, you're gonna be disappointed. And I think it's a little bit for people who are just a little bit above casual camping. You know, they do it more than 3 times a year. and I would actually practice putting it up and taking it down. I would also get the 2 poles that I talked about. I'll put a link down below, so if you're interested, you can get those poles. But seems to be a nice tent, and maybe one day I'll break down and get a hammock to hang in there. I'm going to do a video from the inside of the Tegimen to show you how much room there is. Now, I'm actually kind of surprised at how much room there is for a single person. It's a lot bigger than I thought it would be. And so I'll just show you what I have in here, and you can kind of guess. Now, right here, of course, sleeping bag. Easy chair. I got a stool here. I can just sit out in front. I got a little table there. Disco, which is, that's about 100 pounds right there. That is heavy. You know, it's kind of a big suitcase, you know, for a big battery. Then we have the ice chest. So you can see that. Got a middle space here to walk. Enough room for the sleeping bag. Got a little extra space over here. I got that tool back there, and then I got this camera stand here. Now, for one person, this is great. But what about 2 people? Well, if you get a stove, which would go back there. Let's see if I can get the light over there. Which would be about right there where the chair is. You could do 2 people if you have a sleeping bag here and a sleeping bag side to side this way. Like right here. There is a way to do more than 2 people. And it's using those bunk beds. Now, we have a set of those. I don't really like it. They're really finicky to put together. And a pain in the neck. Take a long time to put together. But you could theoretically have 2 bunk beds. One here and then one right here. And sleep 4 people. I wouldn't do it because if you have gear, you're just going to crowd yourself out. I would say 2 people max if you have a wood stove. If you don't have a wood stove, yeah, I'd still say 2 people max. With a wood stove, I think this is perfect for 1 person, but with 2 people, kind of pushing it. But I do like how much room there is, and one of the things that I'm just ecstatic about is that I normally have been having pyramid tents, or the teepees. So there's usually a pole here, and thankfully I don't have a pole. I can just walk back and forth, not even have to dance around a pole. Get that image out of your mind. But there's good room here for 1 person. 2 people, kind of pushing it. Throw in a wood stove, yeah, still a little pushing it. You know, with 2 people without a wood stove, yeah, you know, you have another sleeping bag over here, your gear down here at the foot. This is great. But, you know, when you throw in a wood stove, 2 people max. That's just my opinion. Let me know your thoughts. Put them in the comments below. But right now, I am going to get my jammies and head to bed. I'll see you guys in the morning. Just relaxing for a little while. Letting Disco do its light show. Well, I am up now. And to just give a little bit more thoughts about this tent after sleeping in it overnight. Yeah, number 1, I like it. I thought it was a lot more room than I anticipated. You know, especially for 1 person camping, it was a lot more room than I anticipated. 2, as I was getting up, I was noticing, you know, in the daylight, a lot of the stitching around where the anchor points are around, and they seem to be really durable, and a lot more stitching than what you might think is necessary. And it seems like it would just hold up really well, you know, all the anchor points. 3, the third thought I had was, this one here, this is a tent that you're going to have to just practice putting up and down a couple of times, unless if you're a casual camper. It wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. And then 4, and then that just takes practice. Nothing. So 4, I wish it was a little taller. The good thing is that I liked TP tents because they were taller. They had a lot of headroom, but you had that pole in the middle. This one does not have a pole, so I like just being able to move up and down, back and forth. But when I stand up, I kind of hunch over. and I'm not all that tall. I mean, just average height, really. And but my head is hitting into the thing. So if you're super tall, like 6'8", you might need a different tent. But yeah, I kind of wish it was a foot or two taller, which might mean it's a foot or two wider. I don't know, but and that would be cool. That would actually definitely fit, you know, maybe 3 people, 4 people. But so far I like it. I plan on camping in it more, and maybe after staying in it a few times to do an update to this review, to just say, hey, these are the things that I've noticed after staying in it, because there's a lot of things you just may not notice the first time you're in there. You might take a few times before you notice, hey, I wished I had this, or hey, I wished I had that. But you know, so far I like it. So I'm kind of giving this a mostly positive, you know, review. It's I have a mostly positive thoughts about this. I'm glad I got it, and I will be using it again. Okay. So right now I am just gonna sit back in my seltzer water for a few minutes, and then I don't even have time for coffee, really. I'm just gonna pack up and get out of here, and I probably might even be back here tonight to try to camp in this again. Okay. Well, with that said, thank you for joining me. You know, the setup is something that you're just going to want to practice doing before you actually go camping. It's not for the casual camper, and because the tent doesn't come with poles, you're supposed to be using a ridge line connected between 2 trees, or you can use, you know, like a stick that you know, or a long pole that you make in the forest to do things. I bought these poles, and as you can see, these poles are adjustable. So if you get this tent, I would recommend that you get these poles for each end. And they're adjustable, but when we had the windstorm, they unlocked and shut down. So the first night, this is like, I set this up 2 days ago. The first night, that pole down there went down, and the whole end just flattened over here. And then this last night with the wind, this pole unlocked and came down. So if you get this tent, get poles, but you know, make sure you get the poles locked up really tight. They're kind of like you know, the shower curtain holders in your bathroom where you can adjust it by twisting it and locking it. That's how they work. I am going to right now redo everything and stake it up and make it pretty again. Okay. Overall, there's after being in this for a couple of days, there's a lot to like about it, but there's also a few cons. But before we get into that, let's talk about the dimensions of it. You will notice that at the top of it, it's longer than it is at the bottom. It's about 12.5 feet at the top, from that end to that end, and at the bottom it's about 10 feet, 9.9 feet, I think the dimensions say. So it is longer at the top than it is at the bottom, and the ends are 6.6 feet. Okay, the space aside is really great. For a single camper, this is awesome. All right, and this is my cot. And before you just know that this cot is one of those extra wide cots. I like to toss and turn when I sleep, so I need a bigger cot. So, and you can see it takes up about half of this side over here. But you know, most cots are more narrow than this, so you can definitely fit 2 of them in here. And with the wood stove, which would go over there where the chair is, you would definitely be able to fit 2 people in here with cots and a wood stove. I wouldn't go any more than that, but for a single camper, which I usually do, it is great. Look at all the room over here. I have disco, I have my ice box, I have a table, and I have this chair. And once if I get a wood stove in here, there's actually 2 wood stove jacks. And so this is another plus for this tent. You got a jack at the top and a jack on the side, so that you could, you know, do sidewall chimney, or you can chimney straight up. So that's a big positive. Okay. All right. So no pole in here, so it's easier. You have more space. Normally in the TP tent, you got that pole, and yeah, you might have a little bit more room in that TP, but you're always walking around that pole. And oh, if you have a wood stove, you got to avoid that too. Here, the wood stove is in the corner, whereas in the TP, it's pushed towards the middle because of the angle of the TP going down. Now, if you use this with a hammock and you've got a hammock coming through, you will actually be off the ground and a little bit warmer, so that's a plus. So the fabric of this tent is a 70D nylon, and the waterproof rating is 3000. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. That'll keep you dry in most weather. Okay. Now you have a big tsunami coming through, that's not going to keep you dry. All right, and the zippers. So YKK, it's a Japanese company, and I'm not going to even go ahead and I'm not going to even try and pronounce the name. And they do over half of the world's supply of zippers, about 7 billion a year, and that's why they are generally more better zippers than any other brand, because they do a lot of them. They know what they're doing, I guess. Now, everything I've looked at as far as the stitching goes, and I'll just take it outside here. I can see 2 lines of zippers. So this is double stitch, it seems like, and even on the sides it's double stitch. And on the inside, I was looking at it, this is also double stitch. So that's pretty good. It gives it a little bit more durability and strength, especially as these are anchor points. And right now I've got a little bit of, this is a light wind. Generally in this area we get 25-30 mile an hour winds, and it survived. The past couple of days we've had a lot of wind, and it has survived the wind. Now, just minor issues with the poles just coming down. Let's go over a couple of the cons. Okay, let's go over a couple of cons. First of all, this type of tent is not really easy for a single person to set up with poles. At least for me. I was able to do it. It took a little bit of time, but I was able to do it. And so if you're going to be buying this tent and you're going to use poles, practice it a couple of times before actually going camping. And it's just one of those things. You do it a few times and you get better at it. Practice taking up, tearing it down, packing it away. So the other thing I don't like is that, yes, it is longer at the top, short at the bottom, but as you can see, it sinks down in the middle. Now, I'm not the tallest person. I'm 5'11"-ish, and when I stand up, my head is touching the roof. Now, if you're super tall, like 6'8", this might not be the tent for you. But, if I was OneTigris, I would actually take this design and actually, there's a few modifications I would recommend, but actually making it taller and a little bit bigger. That would be one of the things I would do. But for right now, it's a little shorter. Now, it's not, I'd rather deal with the shorter thing and hunching down a little bit than the pole. Okay, the pole drove me crazy. I don't like pole dancing. Get it out of your mind. But I would rather deal with it being short. But that is a negative, having to hunch down a little bit. A couple of more negatives is that there is no venting on that. So what that means is that you're going to have more of a buildup of condensation, overnight, and especially if it's raining. And the other thing that I thought was a negative was there was no windows that you could open up for that. Not only venting, but maybe a window with a little screen on it to let air come through. Just, if you're doing this in the summer, you would want air to be able to flow through. And then there's actually no screens on the end, so that if you wanted to open it up to get air in, but without letting in mosquitoes, you don't really have that choice. So that is a negative on here. The other negative is that, I don't know, I think these jack holes are a little kind of small. And so if you got a wood stove, it's in the wind, or maybe the pole falls and the tent fabric moves a little bit, it's going to touch the stove jack, and it might burn or melt. So that is a negative. So that these are a little bit too small, and it might not be well, these are not flame resistant. So you have to keep that in mind when you putting a stove in this tent, is that it might melt if it touched the stove jack. So you have to keep that in mind. And you have to I would recommend, if you have a hot stove in this, is that wrapping the stove jack or the stove pipe with a fiberglass. I'll put a picture one on there, what I'm talking about, but you can wrap it with fiberglass, especially right here where it might touch. That's just to keep the tent from melting when it touches. The other negative is the amount of time it takes to set this up. It does take practice, and if you do get this tent, not only the poles for the ends, but I would get 4 poles or maybe even 6 to hold up right here, because as you can see, I can't get this straight up, and I don't want this flapping around if I have a stove right here. So I would get some poles, and I wish this tent comes with poles, but that, this is kind of geared more towards an experienced camper or the backpacker. This is not geared towards the casual camper that goes camping once every year or 2 years or something like that. So I'm definitely going to order poles, and maybe I'll do an update to this review to show you how it works and see how good it is. I do plan on staying in this more and getting a better feel for it. Okay, now this was something else I thought was a negative. Okay, I know OneTigris likes these stakes. I'm not really a big fan of these stakes, and I typically like longer stakes. See, to me, you put it in the ground and you try to put your line here, but I've had lines just kind of slide out over it. I like something like this. A little more thickness to it, goes deeper, and it has something a little wider up here at the top to hold in the line. You can even tie a line to it. But the other thing too is that these, you have to pull it by the string to pull it out, or it hurts my fingers trying to pull these out of the ground. This, just stick my hands in there and yank it out, or use a hammer and I just pull it out. But that is a negative. I'm not really a big fan of these stakes. But as always, you know, I recommend always having extra stakes whenever you go camping. And okay, one more negative. There are a couple more negatives, is that there are no side pockets. You will notice if you look around, there is no side pocket. So no place to put your cell phone, your keys, your wallet, etc. Maybe your medications. There's no side pocket, which would have been really nice to have in here. And the other negative is that if you look coming down through the middle, there is no place to hang a light. That would have been wonderful. I was able to get a light to hang up back there in the corner from that cord, but it is not the proper place to hang up a light. It would have been nicer if there were some loops coming down through the middle here to be able to do that. All right, the next negative. Now this might be a negative for many people, but not all, but you will notice that there's no floor. Okay, so if you wanted a completely waterproof, like if it does rain, and water might just flow right down through here. Now you could get a tarp and then kind of roll it up at the ends, put a stick in it and roll it up so that water would have to flow underneath it. And if they did add a floor to this, it would add a little bit more bulk, a little bit more weight. So again, it's kind of one of those, it's a drawback for many people, but maybe not a drawback for all people. Some people are okay with just no floor. Okay, the other drawback for this tent is that when I was setting it up for the first time, was that there was no instructions, there was no diagram to kind of give an idea. Now, some people that wouldn't be a big deal, but many people who are not expert campers, you know, a little bit of instructions would have been helpful. But you know, again, that there are YouTube videos on how to set this up, and it is a little bit cumbersome at first, but you know, it's just one of those things that you have to practice. But it would have been nice to have instructions and a diagram, just kind of give people an idea of how to set things up, you know, and especially, you know, advice on how to get these lines straighter, and especially right over here near the stove jack, it's not as straight as it could be, not as shaped as well. So instructions would have been helpful. Another concern I have is the wind resistance to this tent. You know, it's kind of big, and it's a big windscreen, and it's gonna take a lot of beating from the wind. And it did okay. The tent part did okay, and it's still standing after a couple of days of 30 miles an hour wind. But I do have a concern, you know, when I'm using poles in the middle of the night, the poles are going to fall off or whatever like that. You want to stake your poles down really well. You want them locked really tight. Let's talk about the reviews on Amazon. On Amazon, there was, at the time I'm doing this video, it was about 614 reviews, and it had an average review of 4.3 stars. And I look at not only the average of how many stars, but also how many people gave it a 5-star. And this one here had 67% were 5-star reviews. And the other tents that I have, you know, generally had a little bit of a higher number. So whenever I look at 5-star reviews, I kind of like to see a product with at least 70 to 75% 5-star reviews. I hate to see it all over the place. 61% is not bad. It's got 4.3, and you get what you pay for. But the other thing to keep in mind is that the 1-star reviews, there were 6% that were 1-star, and I read all of those, and sometimes those 1-stars are not really legitimate complaints, but the ones I read were pretty legitimate. Things like it wasn't waterproof, it was difficult to set up, or didn't have instructions, things that I've already mentioned that are negatives, but again, that, you know, practice setting it up. And as far as waterproof goes, I think those were older reviews, and that the newer ones are not really complaining about that, so maybe they changed the manufacturing process. But one of the things that I will do, and I will recommend, that if you do get this tent, spray it down with waterproofing material. That way you kind of give it double protection. So I'm going to do that. The other thing I would recommend to do is that if you get this tent is not only get the end poles, but get poles for each one of these so that they can stand up tall and not be moving around as much. And then feel free to just tie down more anchors on this tent as you're using it, so that don't maybe don't rely on one tie down right here, put two, just to give it a lot more strength, especially if you have a lot of wind like I do in this area. The other thing I would recommend doing is putting a heat wrap around the stovepipe if you're going to use that, because there were some complaints about the tent hitting the pipe and then melting. Wrapping it with a fiberglass wrap that you can get them online, and that would help prevent that. And I would just kind of go up and down and do it. The other thing I would recommend is these stakes. Always when you're camping, have extra stakes. You don't want to get out there and like, oh, I need like 2 or 3 more. All right, and that's another reason why you want to practice setting it up and tearing it down before you actually go camping. You can look and see, do I have enough stakes to do it? And for me, I never have enough stakes, so that's why I always have to bring extras. I want to really stake it down. The other thing I would recommend is that if you really want a floor, get a tarp and then put sticks at the edges and then roll it and then clip it, so that it helps keep water from coming into the tent and going over the edges. You want it to go under the edge. So definitely get a tarp if you want a floor. And the other things I would change out is, if OneTigris is asking me, I would say, yeah, side pockets, venting, a window, screens on the end. And for me, I would love to have a bigger version of this tent, something that's a little, 1.5 feet, 2 feet taller and, 2 feet wider. I would love to have one of those. Well, that pretty much sums up my review of this tent. Overall, I like it. There are some negatives that you should be mindful of. And I would not recommend this for a casual camper if you only do it once a year at most. If you do it more often and you're experienced and you don't mind, staking things to trees or tying things to trees, this would be a great tent. If you don't mind that it's missing side pockets, great tent. If you don't mind that it doesn't have a screen door, a great tent. So there are some negatives, but overall I do like it. And as far as the tent shape, that's my biggest concern, is the tent shape and using a stove. Is the tent gonna hit it and melt? There are some things that you can do to help mitigate that. Number one, getting more poles, keep the shape better. Two, and then doing more staking down. There are extra lines in the package to stake this, to add more stakes down, and just get more stakes and stake it down. And I don't like this, so I am going to play to see if there's a way to like tighten up this line in the middle, maybe pulling the poles over a little bit more. But yeah, practice taking it, putting it up and taking it down. I think you will. Overall, the experienced camper is actually going to like this tent. But that's me. I like the tent, and I stayed in it already a couple of nights, and I plan on staying in it a little bit longer, just to see how it works out. But overall, I do give it my seal of approval. It's a good tent. A couple of negatives that are drawbacks, but overall, it's a good tent. Okay. Well, let me know what you think. Okay. If you don't mind, tell me in the comments below. If you have this tent, is there anything that I missed that I should have added in here that brought up, like a negative or positive? Try to be as thorough as I can in this review. Let me know what you think about this tent, and if there's another tent you think I should check out, let me know. I might just pick it up and buy it. Don't tell my wife. I might buy another tent, but I would love to do another review on a different tent, so just let me know. Okay, with that said, let's camp out.